Hi everyone, this is Zadrian Smith for PETRIe Spotlight TV, and today I am so excited that we are joined by, in my opinion, one of the most talented and profound male dancers of this generation, someone that I actually, even though he doesn't remember, someone that I actually crossed paths with several years ago in the strangest of places in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, Jeffrey Cirio. Thank you for joining us.
Thank
How
you so
are
much,
you?
Adrian. I'm good. Thank you for having me. I'm
Of course.
honored to be on here and to talk with you and have a little chat.
Jeff is now a principal dancer with the English National Ballet. And it's just so interesting how things have a 360. So our paths crossed when we were training at Central Pennsylvania Youth Ballet in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. And when I was searching for a dancer to interview, because I really wanted to interview a dancer, and specifically a ballet dancer, Jeff just came up. And I was like, oh, and he's in London. I was like, oh. And so now we're both in London. And here we are. Unfortunately, we can't do this in person because of quarantine, but happy to be doing this via Zoom. And I'm just going to dive right in. We have lots of questions. I have lots of things that I want to ask you. But my first question for you is, when is your next DJ set? Because I'm trying to go to the club.
Yeah, I know, right? Don't we all? So yeah, I've been doing those DJ sets just to. So it's weird because I grew up. My father did like vinyl spinning, like for fun, and my uncle as well did. So he kind of taught me how to vinyl spin, but I wasn't really intrigued until a little later.
Okay.
And then, I got into the whole digital DJing thing, and it's just an outlet because I love music.
Right.
And for me, I always constantly wanted to listen to like mixes. I didn't want to like have like a song stop and then play the next song. So I would just make mixes for myself. I really just enjoy playing music, and then I don't like seeing music and everything like that.
Well, I mean, music is such an intricate part of what you do as a dancer. So I think,
absolutely.
Having a diverse, eclectic mix of music, classical, house, Afro funk, like you said, I think that all serves to what you do. Well, it's funny because as I was getting ready for this interview, I was like, I actually have to kind of like give the kids a little bit of fashion, because I was scrolling through your Instagram and I came across your little elevator fashion series. And you on Prada, Yohji Yamamoto, Margiela, and remember Raf Simons. And I remember the last time I saw you was in Carlisle, and we were like, I don't know if I didn't know about those designers when we were in Carlisle. So
I didn't.
Okay, Jeff, come up on the looks. Like, where did this engagement and this affinity for fashion come from? Because the looks you're serving they're major.
Yeah. So it's funny because I've had this conversation like a long time ago, but I think it comes from the fact that skateboarding culture ties into hip hop culture, which then ties into fashion culture.
Right.
And for me, it was basically that lineage. So I was a skateboarder as a kid and loved like the shoes aspect of it and like the graphic t-shirts and stuff like that. And sort of gravitated to being like a sneakerhead, which was like, for me, I like in the early 2000s, Kanye West was everything.
Right.
What he was bringing out and his fashion, and then his collaboration with the Nike was massive. I mean, it was a huge cultural shift,
right?
Especially in like, I think in hip hop for sure. And then also like Pharrell, I just remember specifically. Yeah, I love Pharrell. Specifically,
Pharrell is my fashion. If I could be Pharrell, I'd be. I mean, first of all, he hasn't aged for like the past 30 years.
I know, right?
Unapologetically, I said this. I remember somebody asked me who was like my fashion icon. I was like, Pharrell. Like, who do you know that can wear Chanel tweed women's coat and make it look so cool?
Absolutely, yeah. And I remember specifically looking at Pharrell. There was just one picture of Pharrell, and I think he was like in some. I don't know if it was like Complex magazine or something, and it was him in skinny blue jeans, Vans, white t-shirt, and a cool like hat. And I was just like, it was just iconic. And it was like, for me, I was like, that was a shift and change. I was like, wow, like that, you can make it that simple. Fashion can be that simple. And really like hip hop culture, like when I was seeing a lot of Kanye's team, and because Virgil came out of Kanye's team, Matthew and Williams, yeah, of Aleeks.
Oh yeah, from Aleeks. Yes.
Yeah.
Rumor has it. I don't know if you, but rumor has it that Matthew might be going to Givenchy. So
See, and so that's how I got kicked on to Givenchy when Ricardo was like the whole Rottweiler, the whole Lotus Flower, like all that stuff.
Do you like Ricardo at Burberry?
I do. I like what he's doing. I think personally, it's not what I would be wearing right now.
Mm-hmm.
But what Ricardo was doing at Givenchy was like me. It was
major.
So major, and I think that's how I really got like on the kick. Right. And so then it just grew from there. It was like from there to Rick Owens. I got obsessed with Rick Owens. So, and then it went from that to Margiela to Prada, and then it just, Raf Simons. Right. It just trickles down. But yeah, and then like Comb and Yoji, the whole Japanese era of stuff.
Like some of the looks that you did were so simple. Like you'd have on like a black hat with black sunglasses with a black, like even your colors are quite muted, I think your color palette is quite Japanese in a sense. But there's just something about, I think maybe it's the fabrications, maybe it's the cut, maybe it's how you styled it, that when you see it, it's like, okay, this person is interesting, this person has a unique voice, they have something to say. But I think a lot of dancers naturally do have good style. I don't know where that comes from, but dancers normally kind of have some kind of sense or quirk or something that's quite stylish about
them.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know, and I think it's maybe because we look at ourselves all the time in the mirror, and we know what silhouettes look good on ourselves.
True. If you had to wear one designer rest of your life, who would it be?
That's really hard. I think right now, I'd probably say Prada for sure.
Prada. Okay.
Yeah, because the reason why is because, well, this is interesting because Raph is going to be over there, and I've admired, what's your name?
Misha?
Yes.
Yes. She's a genius. She's a
genius. And so I think it's very, it can be understated and it can be flagrant as well.
So I want to ask you about your sister, Leah.
Sure.
I know you guys have a really special relationship.
Yeah.
So talk about your relationship with Leah and how, if it weren't for Leah, you probably would not be a dancer.
Yeah. So like you said in the beginning, we met in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. And so the reason why that my family ended up in Carlisle is because of my sister. And so she really wanted to be a ballerina since she was 3. That was really the case. So, I mean, I grew up watching her constantly. I think, like, for me, I was just the soccer kid. I was the athlete kid, always hanging around a ballet studio. And I think for me, if I wouldn't have put one and one together, I wouldn't have said, oh, let's take a ballet class if I wasn't around it all the time. So yeah, I do. There's a lot of credit goes to my sister for kind of just being at the studio all the time with her.
So, okay, so Leah, you guys moved to Carlisle and Leah's training, and now you get exposed to that. So now you're training as well. Yeah. So you mentioned about intensity, and that's one of the things that I remember about CPYB, about how intense the training was. And I guess one of the things that we spoke about when I was talking to you about this interview is that, do you ever feel like you lost out on a normal childhood, whatever normal might be, but by societal terms, because you were homeschooled? So like, do you feel like that was sacrificed by, committing to dance at such an early age? Or how did you cope with that? How did you develop an identity outside of the training for yourself? Or was your identity encapsulated in the world of ballet?
Yeah, I think as a lot of young dancers, their identity, if you train in ballet as hardcore as we did, or the school did, your identity becomes the school, basically. Like your friend becomes school. Like, yeah, there are some kids I think that went to high school there, and had friends outside, and they went all the way through the school and all the way through high school, and then maybe ended up going to college and
Right.
had separate friends. But I think like there's always an identity, like especially when you're training so hard with someone, you're gonna have friends in that work area. And so like what we said when we were talking the other day is that I saw in the school so many younger boys there at the school, and I thought of it like as, oh crap, like they like skateboarding, and they also like Game Boy, and they also like Pokemon, and it's like this is cool, like I want to hang out. This is kind of why I got into it. I think it was more for the social aspect than it was for the ballet or the being athletic in a studio.
So you saw that it was an opportunity for you to create a social circle.
Absolutely, yeah. And I like kind of, as I grew up in the school, I mean, I guess I did miss out on like, things like prom or stuff like that, but that wasn't really important to me at the time. Like with ballet,
what was important to you?
Yeah, what was important was really like when you're obsessed with something, you just want to keep on it. And so like for me, that was not until I was 14 did I decide that I wanted to do it professionally. And we as ballet dancers have to decide at a very young age, or a fairly young age, what you're gonna do, and if you're gonna pursue it in your career or not. And some people decide that later in life and have successful careers, and some people have to decide it earlier in life.
Right.
And there was a point where, as you know, CPYB can be very intense.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I kind of got to a point where I reached my limit of like, you're not good enough from a certain person in the school. And I was just like, I remember talking to my mom, and I was like so distraught. I was like, I just don't know if I want to do it anymore. And my mom was like, why? It's like, you're really good at it. Like, if you don't want to do it, don't worry. Like, you don't have to worry. But like, I was like, yeah. And so my mom talked to another teacher. I'm not going to say names, but another teacher, and was basically, I was like, have him look at this guy. And it was Fernando Bajones.
Okay.
And I remember watching it, and I remember being like, oh my gosh, I want to be like him.
Right.
I want to do that. I want to be as good as him. And that was kind of a light bulb of a switch in my mind. And I remember my mom being like, do you still want to train here? And I was like, no, not really. And she's like, so let's figure out what we can do. So that's when I kind of started training for competitions as a young kid. And that was frowned upon at CPYB. So that's why I left. I don't want to speak bad about them because they have.
No, of course not. Like, and we're going to talk about Marcia Del Weary but I think it's just also really good to understand. I think it's good for people watching this to understand what it goes into becoming a professional ballet dancer, and also to understand that even within ballet culture, there are these expectations. I think a lot of these top ballet conservatories, the expectation is you go to the ballet conservatory from when you're really young, and you don't leave until you are ready to be in a company, whether that be a second company or the first company, because ultimately that's prestige for the school. They want to be able to say this person is a product of our school. Now they're in City Ballet, they're in ABT.
Absolutely.
It doesn't make sense from a school business perspective. What would you say is the difference between the training that you got at CPYB and the training that you got when you were doing training with, a competitive coach?
Yeah. Well, with CPYB, it was very high technique, and it was very much about like maybe working on your technique and your ballet class and performing with the school.
Right. Okay.
And with working with a coach, the cons are one-on-one coaching. You're learning maybe a bit faster. I mean, not always does it work, but I think it all depends on what kind of dancer and what kind of coach work together. you also working on artistic value of things. So this is like, if you think about it, it's like working with a group or working one-on-one.